How many of you have a bag of batting that's random and you don't know what it is? Today, we are going to categorize our batting so we know exactly what we have. So back in the day, I'm not sure how, but I acquired a lovely kit from the Warm Company, and it was a sampler pack of all their different types of batting that they had. And I thought this is such a clever idea. So let me show you. This is their Warm and Natural. And look what they did. They added the name. I don't know if you can see that on either side. Just a piece of paper. And it has the company information. And on the back, all the information about Warm and Natural cotton. So there's the cotton piece. So what I've done is I've just added to it. So for example, the Warm and Plush. I thought this little piece is a little bit too small. So what I'm doing is I'm adding, when I get a little tiny piece left over, I just remove the staple and add to it. Now, the nice part about this is you can do this with other different types of batting. So for example, I have the Hobbs, and I've already taken just a photo from the internet, and I added the information. These are all found online, and I just put it on a piece of paper. I'm going to fold it in half. I'm going to get some of my Hobbs Heirloom Premium 80/20, which I have in a bag right here. And I'm going to take a little piece of this simple. I'm going to cut a piece off. And it doesn't have to be a big piece. Let me see if I can find a small piece here. I think I have a pretty good section here. So I'm just going to take a section right off the top. Stick the rest of this back in the bag. And then what I'll do is I'll take my Hobbs 80/20. I'm going to take my piece of batting. I'm going to stick it right down the middle. And I kind of want to crease it at a good spot so that you can kind of see what it is. Put my piece of batting in there. My trusty stapler. And there it is, categorized. So we have a bunch of battings here, and right away I can tell that this here is white and it stands out among the rest. It definitely has a super high loft on it, meaning thickness, and it's got a bit of a looser scrim on it, meaning that I can kind of pull it apart a little bit. And when I compare this to some of my polyesters, I can tell it's polyester. And actually, it's probably this one right here. Pretty close. The color's the same. The texture's the same. So right away, I'm going to guess that this is probably 100% polyester. They're kind of easy to distinguish. Here's a bag of polyester that I got. This one's definitely not the same brand. You can see that this one's definitely looser, but the texture is very similar. I don't feel any cotton in it. And if I were to take my mouth and blow through this, I know that I can't blow through it. It's kind of harder to blow through. So I'm going to say that this is 100% polyester. And once I get that, I am going to take a little piece of paper and staple it. So that will go back into my stash, and it's ready for the next project. When looking at these 4 different battings, already I can tell that they're very similar. So they probably have the same kind of threads or makeup in them. When I start touching them, this one's very soft. This one's it's soft but bumpy. This one, again, soft. This one feels scratchy. So let's go to this one. Fairly easy. When I give it a pull, it doesn't really come apart, but it kind of feels a little bit sticky, so I'm going to assume that this is some form of a fusible. Now, out of all of my stash here, the only one that was fusible that I've used that is cotton, because when I look at this, I think these are all probably some form of a cotton just by the look of them, and not a fleece and not a polyester. I only have the Hobbs Heirloom fusible, and that's what I've used in the back, or used before. So I'm going to pull on this, and already I can tell it's got a very similar makeup and stretch to it. It doesn't give quite a bit. So I'm going to assume that this is Hobbs Heirloom fusible cotton batting. Now we're left with 3 different battings here. This one here stands out the most because it's kind of got a bit of a brown fleck in it. Can you see those little grains? Those little grains are definitely from some form of a cotton. And so I'm going to put these to a side, and I'm going to look at all of my different cottons. Warm and Plush, my toasty cotton. So these are some of the ones that I've used before. When I look at this, I definitely see little bits of things here. Not so much on this side, but I definitely see little spots on this one. When I look at the Warm and Plush, sure, this one's got a few. I don't know if it's dirt. I think overall it doesn't have that look to it. And this toasty cotton from Fairfield, I don't see any at all in this. So I'm going to assume it's definitely not this. So I'm going to put these 2 away. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a tug. And I feel like it's pretty stiff. And when I go to my Warm and Natural, yep, it's definitely got the same kind of stiffness. So I'm going to assume that this is the Warm and Natural. Another thing you can do is breathe through this just to make sure that it's got a good amount of breathability, and it does. So I'm going to assume that this is my Warm and Natural. Lastly, I have 2 piles left. They feel very similar. They kind of have a similar feel to them. When I look at the thickness, I don't know. It's hard to tell. They look pretty similar. They look pretty similar. They're both kind of bally. All right, let's give a look here. So I've got my Warm Bond. This is bonded cotton. Now when I look at this and I give it a tug, it feels pretty stiff, but this one's definitely more stiff. It's hard to pull apart. I don't think these are the same. Even still, when I look at the thickness, you can see this one's definitely thinner than the one we have here. When I look at this one, again, too thin. So this one is out. Okay, Fairfield, let's give a look. So Fairfield right away, I can see, I don't know if you can see that, there's little dots. You see those little dots in there? Those are the needle punched spots. And when I look at this, I don't see any of that. And so, just for that reason, this is out. Okay, 80-20 poly. This I can really hear it kind of pulling apart and crunching out. This one doesn't have that same kind of crunchy and the feel. This is definitely fluffier. And this one feels a little bit more natural. They just look different too. So this one being too smooth, too synthetic, out. So now when I go to my Warm and Plush, I'm looking at them and thinking they look pretty similar. When I look to the sides, Yeah, these are pretty similar. So these might actually be the exact same. All right, let's look at this one. This one's a bit fluffier, but let's look at a different section here. They feel very similar, so I'm just going to assume they're actually very similar. So I'm going to assume that both these pieces are exactly the same. They kind of look similar, and they are my warm and plush. So here is how I store all of my batting samples. I just put them on a string. You can put them on one of those metal hoops and just hook it somewhere. And there it is. All of the samples that you've ever used, all on one spot. And you can just keep checking all your stuff as you go along. Now, I know some of you are going to ask, what is the breathability test? So you get your piece of batting and you breathe through it. And you'll be able to tell whether it's really breathable, whether it's kind of breathable, and surprisingly, they have quite a different breathability to each and every one. So test them out, get yourself organized, and I hope to see you next time.